Good morning, everyone. This is a legislative meeting. We have our legislators that will be representing us in Topeka with us this morning. We're going to go ahead and make introductions for everybody that's here in person as well as on the Zoom meeting. This is a public meeting, and then we'll move on. My name is Mayor Reddy, and also when you speak, just introduce yourselves. And anytime you are speaking or commenting, making remarks, make sure to say your name so the public knows who you are as we continue this discussion. We're here from 9 to 10:30, and typically we have breakfast, but this is a no breakfast legislative meeting this morning. So with that, I'll go to Commissioner Estabrook, and we'll just go all around, and then we'll go to the Zoom folks.
Commissioner Estabrook, I'm here.
Yes.
Representative Sidney Carlin.
Good morning. Happy New Year. Dennis Marstall, Assistant City Manager.
Dennis Butler, RCPD Director.
Why don't we go up there?
Okay. Let's go on to the Zoom meeting, the folks on Zoom. We'll start off
I'm
with-
not hearing the mayor.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I wasn't either, Tom.
Oh, okay. Hear any of the
Still not
beginning?
hearing you as loudly as I was when you started the
Okay, how about
meeting.
now? Is that better?
Not a little, but not much.
Huh. I'll keep talking, tell me when. But, is that any better?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. We need for you to hear what's going on, so. Is my mic working?
Podium mic, test 1, 2.
Yeah.
Folks online, do you hear that?
Do you hear Ron?
No,
Not
that,
very well.
yeah, that's not very loud, Mark.
Okay.
I think you're not getting, your mics are not live. You're just getting picked up by whatever is picking you up in terms of the Zoom.
Okay. Right, right.
Can we hear you through the mic? Sorry.
Hello.
Oops.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
So there's something about the transmission on the Zoom that's not picking up.
Yes, can you hear me? 1, 2, 3.
No better than before.
Okay. Let me.
It might be
Here.
important to mention that we're introducing some new technology today.
Can you hear me?
So they're gonna have to fuss with it till we
Testing,
get
1,
it
2,
right.
3.
Can you
Better.
hear me okay?
Hello?
Yes.
Folks
can
online,
hear
are
you
you
now.
are you picking up
I can
anybody?
hear you much better now.
You can hear me much better now?
Well,
No, went back.
Okay,
it went back to not hearing.
all right.
Hang with us a little bit.
Over there, I can switch my mic. Hello?
Maybe go to another mic.
Right, and that's what we were trying. I went to another mic. Mark, you want to say something and see if they can hear you?
Commissioner Hattasol here. Can you hear me now any better than anybody else?
This is Linda Morse, Manhattan City Commissioner.
Could you hear Mark? Nope.
We could hear Mark, but we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me. Okay, that's probably not a problem. It's probably a good thing.
Get your face right into that microphone, I guess.
Yeah. Let's try this mic. How about now?
Yes,
Yes.
This is better?
absolutely.
Yes.
All
Much
right.
better.
I will move on over here. Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, now we will go on to the Zoom legislators on the Zoom meeting with us. Commissioner Morris, would you like to go ahead and start, and we'll just hop in?
Linda Morris, Manhattan City Commission.
Senator Tom Hawk, Manhattan, representing District 22, which is Riley, Clay, and part of Geary County.
Representative Susie Carlson, representing District 64, Clay County, and part of Riley County.
Representative Ron Highland, District 51, includes Riley, Potawatomi, Wabunsee, Shawnee, and Lyon County.
That's everybody, I think.
Did Representative Dodson say
He
something?
must have popped off.
No, I was kind of waiting for Sydney, but Mike Dodson, Representative-elect for 67, which is Ryder County in Manhattan to the west of Sydney Carlson.
Well, thank you, Michael. I already had introduced myself before we had the problems in microphones, but thank you.
Is there anybody else on the Zoom meeting? Is that it, Ron?
I think we've got some staff members, but we can proceed, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We will go on to our community update. Ron Fear, our city manager, will do the community update, and from there, we'll continue with the rest of the meeting. So Ron, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, representatives. Appreciate you
I
joining us.
can't hear
this
you,
morning.
Ron.
Can't hear me. Okay. How about this?
No.
Is that better?
A little bit.
All right, I'll try to, we're getting some backfeed here in the room, so. Okay, how about now? Test 1, 2?
Not great, but better.
All right, I'll try to pick up the volume there a little bit. Again, welcome to our legislative briefing. I wanted to just talk a little bit about some of the city initiatives we have before us in 2021 that we wanted to make you aware of. Obviously, the continued recovery and dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic is a key component. The City Commission is in the plan. We hired a consulting group, Planning Next, out of Ohio, which the contract for them to do their work is on tomorrow evening's agenda. And we look for that strategic plan to really focus on us as a community, as a city government, and the services we provide, and what are the priorities in those services and in the community. And we anticipate having a draft strategic plan done by basically the mid of the year. Economic development will continue to be a key item for us as we look at, we announced last year Bev Hub in the Corporate Technology Park, 37 new jobs, making significant contributions to a new canning beverages component in the former Tallgrass Brewing facility. They're making significant investments there. About a $900,000 expansion, about $22 million in equipment installation as part of that, and we'll have 37 jobs over the next 3 years. Also, our contract with the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce, focusing on jobs, talent, entrepreneurship, and innovation. As part of a half-cent sales tax that was passed in the fall, which will start in 2023 to replace the county economic development tax. Looking at focusing on workforce housing issues, and previous to that, the commission had indicated a desire to develop a housing advisory board. So we're just beginning that process of working on the creation of that housing advisory board and start tackling some of the workforce housing issues. We have 3 recreation centers that'll be opening this year. And I'll talk a little bit more about those. And then key focuses will be infrastructure as we look more in Aggieville, as well as the North Campus corridor with significant projects on Kimball Avenue, our street maintenance program. The airport runway project has started design. We're going to replace our main runway. That won't actually occur till probably late 2022 or 23. So we're in the design phase, but one of the things that I wanted to point out about the runway replacement program is currently it is 7,000 feet long by 150 feet wide. The FAA has said that we don't need a 150-foot wide runway, and so we believe we do. It's about a $3.5 million additional cost to keep it at the width it's at. That's something we're going to want some help from. Obviously, part of that width is a key for being able to service fully Fort Riley and their use of the airport. So we think it's a significant state issue that we certainly want to work with the state as well as the federal government on trying to keep what we have and not be a detriment to Fort Riley. Other aspects are our levee improvement project. We anticipate going to bid mid-year of this year, and so we're in the easement acquisition phase for that now, with construction likely to start in 2022. This is just kind of a calendar item of the strategic plan to show that it starts here in January, and by the end of June we hope to have a draft plan, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that. So COVID-19 has been a key component. This is a busy slide. The city initially worked with the Manhattan area chambers and issued 84 loans for $372,000. That was early in the process. We've been fortunate enough to receive some community development block grant funds from the feds that have helped with some of our rental and mortgage assistance programs, as well as direct aid for folks that provide services to low-income folks in the community. We've had the commissions did some work on some outdoor dining platforms to create more opportunity for businesses downtown, as well as ease some of our sidewalk dining regulations. We have formed a recovery task force that really tried to focus on getting the message out how our businesses can be safe and open. We've also received about $2.9 million, a little under $3 million in Sparks funds from the county's $14.9 million allocation. So with the pandemic, we're certainly still concerned about some sources of revenue, primarily our transient guest tax, as we don't anticipate conferences and other types of meetings to start up soon. So our lodging and entertainment and also dining, our special alcohol funds are down. Of course, those are used for social service agencies, general fund, and special park and rec. So those are areas that we're certainly focused on. Haven't heard yet on where revenues are with first half property tax payments, but that's certainly something that we'll continue to watch as well. One of the things in the pandemic that I just wanted to point out that I think we may see some activity on in this legislative session. As you know, we're in two counties, Pottawatomie County and mostly in Riley County. And as such, it's been a challenge trying to get both counties to do similar actions within our city. And part of the reasoning we did our own mask ordinance. So a couple of things as we look at that, as we overhaul some of those statutes maybe, would be the city's ability to designate a specific emergency manager in a specific county for the whole city, regardless of its geographic boundary. We also think it would be important to have geographic orders for whether that's the governor or emergency managers or others that can pinpoint, instead of saying it's the whole county, it's just this area of the county potentially. So those are some things that we'd like to work with you on in the future. We also support direct federal and state aid to local governments. Even though we were very pleased that we got $2.9 million in the Sparks funds as it was distributed through the county, our actual request to the county was for $9.9 million in funds. As it was distributed on a population basis, and that would have corresponded to our population. So realizing there were a lot of other things, and we are appreciative of the process Riley County used in distributing those funds. Some of the infrastructure I just wanted to point out. We broke ground on the new parking garage in Aggieville. Picture there in the upper left. There's some renderings of the new parking garage, just over 450 stalls that will be done there, and improvements in Aggieville, and a key component of enhancing our ability to redevelop Aggieville. Just some other pictures. This is one of the focus areas is a new alleyway in between Rally House and the structure. So we think that'll be a real attractive component as part of this upgrade and redevelopment effort. Other infrastructure that's occurring is improvements to the Laramie Street and 14th Street, as Laramie Street will be the primary entry-exit point for the new garage. And then also the 12th Street improvements that are occurring in Aggieville. And this shows you some of the construction there. Obviously, this all started with the city selling one of the small lots in Aggieville off of Bluemont to allow for the Courtyard by Marriott Hotel. That followed with us establishing a tax increment financing district to help fund and produce an increment of revenue to be able to do these improvements. This 12th Street project is a half-block project between, it's more than that, but the focus is on the pedestrian plaza from the Morrow North to the alley. Anticipate that'll be replicated to the south as well. So we're certainly interested in continued improvement, and you'll be hearing more about some of the next steps in Aggieville as well. I thought that was a good time to transition into the dark store alternative property valuation component. Obviously, the aspect of tax increment financing and establishing an increment of revenue growth doesn't correlate with decreased property values. So we need those increased property values, and we don't need these theoretical based components, the hypothetical lease fee and other components, and we really hope that the Board of Tax Appeals and the legislature can get that one figured out to how that's fair for commercial properties and how things are appraised, and could be residential properties. So that could be very hectic on a tax increment financing district, as well as other just regular revenue. The property tax lid, we support repeal of the tax lid. If that can't happen, we support being able to add the employee benefit fund as an exemption to the lid. Lids that have occurred in the past have had that exemption because it's very difficult for us to be able to control our health care costs and other components that relate to that. And the other aspect is to remove the special election provision and replace it with a protest petition instead. Just an update on some of our recreation centers. This is some pictures from the Douglas Recreation Center. It's well underway. We anticipate that to be happening and opening probably in February, so we're anxious for that. The middle school recreation centers, both at Anthony and Eisenhower, will have 4 gyms, a multi-purpose court area, walking track. These were voter-approved initiatives through a special sales tax, and so both of those are under construction. We look at Anthony. This is some fairly recent pictures of Anthony that should be completed in the spring, probably around the April-May timeframe, and then Eisenhower mid to late summer. We also have some construction at Sunset Zoo with the Expedition Asia exhibit, $4.2 million, over half of which is in private funds. The rest was voter-approved sales tax use. We also have a project starting at the Flint Hills Discovery Center that is privately funded, about $2 million in improvements to the children's area of the Discovery Center. Just wanted to focus on some state shared revenues. There's been a lot of discussion about trying to reinvigorate the LAVTR and some of the other shared revenue sources that have been suspended for many years. Certainly those were measures meant to help keep property taxes down, and so reinvigorating those would certainly help us in our budget balancing aspects and to avoid some of those other components that the legislature has approved in the past. The internet sales tax, obviously the compensating use tax has been a big benefit for the state and
Test. I'm back on.
The beauty of Zoom.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That was neat to be able to
Test,
watch him
test.
get that award with his wife.
Yes. They,
Okay, can you hear us now?
Ron
Folks
Fair, he's
online, can you
aware
give
of
me a
the
thumbs
issue.
up if you can hear us?
Back connected.
Can you hear us? Can you
I
hear
see
us?
Linda nodding her
Well,
head.
it's so nice we have this time together.
Well, I
My
apologize
little
for that.
Carol Burnett stuff I'll throw in there.
There you go.
Okay, I think we're back.
Well, I
The-
suspect we're live and other people who are listening in can hear us
They
chat.
can't hear us.
If we can't hear the city. Maybe Commissioner Morris could go ahead and share the rest of the slides with us.
Senator Hawk, can you hear us
That's
now?
like putting us on the spot. Did-
Pressured there, huh?
No,
Yeah, I
they
just
can't
got a
hear us.
text from Yusha that their mics have all gone down.
They're not hearing
So,
us.
Can you hear us?
Good morning. This is Katie Jackson, City Attorney, and I'm at City Hall. And Commissioner Morris is correct. They are aware that we can't hear them. And just to let you know, this group is still being broadcast live. So the issue is not this group and the broadcast feed. The issue is, as Commissioner Morris said, coming from City Hall.
So if you talk
So-
up and be goofy, everybody will know.
Right?
We'll hear all your jokes.
I need to, my kids gave me a dad's joke book. I'm going to start bringing that with me, so when we have these technology errors, that I have something really interesting and entertaining to share with the group. But
Can you hear us?
maybe I've spared
Hello?
you all without having that book.
Got it.
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2.
Yes.
You can hear us. All right. Well,
Yes.
this is City Manager Ron Fear. I think maybe we've got things back up on this end. So let's, we'll continue on. I was starting to talk about the internet sales tax and the compensating use tax.
Hey,
how,
Ron, can you go back one slide? I think we missed the bottom part of that last one.
no, it's not responding. I hit the back arrow, front arrow, it's not responding.
Is anybody at City Hall talking?
Yeah, my control for the slideshow stopped.
Okay, we wanted to be sure to let you know if we lost you. Thanks. We're good.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. This one? Yeah. Okay, we were talking about state shared revenues, and just certainly there's been a lot of discussion about reviving some of those shared revenues. A lot of those dealt with sharing other revenue sources to lower the pressure on property taxes. So with the property tax lid, that would certainly be an important component to consider in the future. The internet sales tax, obviously we're appreciative of the work that the Department of Revenue and the governor did in enacting compensating use tax. I think it's been very beneficial for the state as well as local units of government. I'm not so sure it's helped our local businesses much during this pandemic, as it's been much more convenient to order online, although a lot of them have created an online platform. So as our local businesses have struggled, internet businesses have certainly grown exponentially, as I believe the holiday shopping season has borne out from that aspect of things. So you've still got, even though this helps raise the bar as far as fairness is concerned, it's still, there's some aspects of it that could be challenged, and we would hope that the legislature would work with the administration to try and plug some of those potential loopholes. But we are appreciative because the compensating use tax has certainly helped us in the long run this year. Certainly want to continue support funding for K-State and the Manhattan Area Technical College, and as you look at your budget deliberations in that regard. On the infrastructure side of things, we certainly are appreciative of some of the KDOT programs that we've been fortunate to receive some funding in. There we go. Just took a while for it to get here. This is a picture of the North Campus corridor. So if you look over on the far left, that blue line's the number 6. That's the Kimball and College intersection that's wrapping up for completion. That was a significant project. The northern half of the projects on Marlette and Denison have all been completed. And then far to the right, in the lower part, 7, 5, and 8, those are North Manhattan, and they've been completed. This calendar year, we're fortunate to have a grant to do number 9. They're in the middle of Kimball, leaving off where the current project stops there at the entrance to the west parking lot at the stadium, and then going on past the grain industry complex with a new intersection there. We also have Project 10, which is a $4.2 million grant that we got under Secretary Carlson when he was at KDOT, and that project is anticipated to be let later this year. That one is what we're kind of calling straightening the curve and widening and getting rid of the overpass project. So those are two of the major projects that will happen this calendar year, so more barricades and orange cones on Kimball.
What was that number? That Carlson had what number? What part? I didn't find it.
Go back to that. So number 10.
The purple part?
The purple part, yep.
That's going into in that area?
So that's between Metal Arc, and the NBAF service area.
So what are we doing? We're straightening it
We're
all?
straightening the curve a little bit, and we're widening it. Right now, those are narrow lanes. We're putting in some medians.
Well,
We're
that-
getting rid of the livestock crossing in order to do that widening.
Will that look like it does there, or is that how it looks now?
That's how it looks now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Little more detailed there on that blue section that you see. One of the main projects there is we're creating a back frontage road, if you will, that'll connect to College and connect all of the ag properties on that north side of Kimball. That eliminates a lot of those driveways that are on that north side and creates a lot more safety. And that was one of the focuses of that cost share program for KDOT participating. We're looking forward to groundbreaking ceremonies on both those projects this year. So as soon as those get established, and we work with Secretary Lorenz, then we'll certainly advise you of those dates and opportunities. On the right-hand side is a drawing of improvements that are slated at the K-State Research Park off of North Manhattan. So this will build out the rest of the infrastructure there at the south end of the research park, creating a through drive road, as well as across from the AIB where we've done some work, creating 3 additional lots, and a portion of the lot across to the east of the current Kansas Department of Ag is a partnership with K-State, the K-State Foundation, and Stormont Vale to put in the Physician's Assistance Program at that location, and that is anticipated to start at the end of this year. Just so you have enough orange cones on Kimball, this is a project you might recall in 2019, we replaced Kimball Avenue from Sethchild just to the east of Browning. It was a pretty big project. We're looking to do the same to the west. This time it'd be from Sethchild to Candlewood, not a long enough stretch there, but some significant changes there, creating a new entrance to the Candlewood Shopping Center, which they're participating in, as well as getting rid of that big concrete line ditch and putting a buried storm sewer system there. So some changes that's anticipated to be bid early this year as part of improvements in that area. The picture on the right-hand side is the now completed North Manhattan Avenue phase. We've built a new intersection at Claflin in North Manhattan, and then additional lanes and turning lanes and safety and lighting improvements along North Manhattan. North Manhattan now has been fully converted from a rural 2-lane roadway to a full urban section. So that's a significant improvement. Almost all of that's been done with local funds and specifically economic development funds over 3 phases. So this was the 3rd and final phase of that project. Just some other components that are kind of secondary on our legislative platform is mental health improvements and expansion of Medicaid, specifically looking at assistance for our local first mental health responder program, and so we're appreciative of any assistance the state can do with Pawnee Mental Health as they've suffered some cuts and funding shortfalls in their aspects of their program. Looking at property valuation caps, and we've provided you with a draft of all of our detailed plan. We're specifically concerned about our city right-of-way management, although we appreciate the move for broadband support, being able to have some say on where some of that goes in our right-of-ways is important, especially when we're sinking millions of dollars into some of these corridor improvements, so they're not tearing up brand new infrastructure as those improvements are made. So that right-of-way control is a significant component for us. You can imagine what Aggieville would look like after we've spent millions on streetscape, only to have it dug up and not be able to control where some of that's going. CAPER support, certainly appreciate the work that the legislature has done in the past to shore CAPERs up. Obviously, we have a lot of employees that are on that system, and we appreciate your full funding of that, as we've not we don't have the flexibility of modifying our contribution to CAPERS. Our employees and as an employer, we're required to do it, and only the legislature has made adjustments to that on their contributions. So we would appreciate your full support for that. And then there's been some significant work on abandoned and blighted housing and our ability to tackle some of those challenges in our local communities. With that, I'd stand for any questions. If commissioners have any comments, otherwise we'd love to hear from our representatives and senators kind of as to kind of what your take is on the session and relative to some of the comments we've made, and then might share some of your, I know some of you have some new committee assignments and there's some new committees. So with that, we would stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
I have a question, please. This is Ron Highland.
Yeah, thanks, Ron, for giving everybody the update. I think one of the things, you know, as you think about, some of you know more about our city and the improvements we're making, or our economic development plans and such as Ron presented them. But I also think, like Ron said, this is a good time for you to let us know what committees you're on and what you see as challenges that you might be facing and what you feel like we're going to be getting done this session. And then we can come back to commissioner comments and questions for us. So with that, I will open it up with Representative Carlson to let us know what committees you're on and your thoughts for this legislative session.
Thank you, Yusha. My committees have not changed. I serve on Appropriations Committee. I think I started that in about 2009. I don't know. I can't remember. But I'm happy to serve on that committee. It gives me the opportunity to make sure that the things get funded here that you're talking about with your highway plans and your, state support of your issues, and also gives me a chance to watch out for K-State and higher K-12 education, which is so important to our community. I'm also serving on Ag and Natural Resources, and we have a new chairman this year. It's going to be Ken Rogers, I think. I don't know. I'm getting confused. I'll have to, maybe Ron knows. He was chair last year. Also, I'm the ranking member on Ag. I'm the furthest west person, Democrat in Kansas, so that's going to be my seat, I think, as long as I'm there. I'm also on the Ag and Natural Resources Budget Committee, where I'm also the ranking member. That budget committee serves about 14 agencies. We have the Department of Commerce, which is critical and has been doing really good work this year. Excuse me. I don't talk much anymore. No, don't see anybody. And the Department of Agriculture, and we have the Department of Environment. From Health and Environment, we have the environment side, and a number of other agencies. I'm the ranking member on that committee as well. I'm also serving on the Corrections and Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee in the interim. Been on that committee for a number of years as well. This year we have 7 bills that didn't get through the process last year that we're going to reintroduce, hoping to make some positive changes in the corrections system, reduce some penalties, free up some people through things like, we hope we get one passed to take the ability to take your driver's license away because of fees that aren't paid, so that people can work. There's several good things coming, and be happy to get input from our police and the city on any of those issues that affect you while we're doing those bills. I'm also going to reintroduce the last piece of the False Claims Act that I've worked on for many years, and had the support of the Attorney General last year to do that, and our hearing was scheduled on the day we shut down. So we didn't get that one through. So hopefully that goes through this year. it will bring in millions of dollars to Kansas just to finish this one piece. I'm very interested in your comments, and I do have some questions. I'll pass for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Carlin. How about Representative Dodson? Would you please let us know what committees you're on? And this is your first time up there, and would you like to update us on what's going on?
Now, well, I can't give you much of an update on what's going on. My committees, they ask you to select one or two of the ones you've asked for, and was fortunate to be placed on the Commerce, Labor, and Economic Development Committee. That was one of my primary interests and has been for a long time. Veterans Committee, Elections Committee, and Insurance and Pensions. So hopefully can learn a lot of things and try to make a little bit of a difference as I go up there in my first year. The thing that I think we need to watch for is if the Revenue Committee's forecast is correct, and if we're going to actually have a little bit of a plus up in this coming year, we have to be careful that people don't try to take that away in the form of returning tax to people. My suggestion would be that we put that in an emergency fund because the following year is still forecast to be down. And I don't want to be spending it on things that we don't need. We just need to do it wisely. So if we can establish that emergency fund and also get this emergency management figured out, I think we will made a big step in the current conditions.
Thank you. Representative Highland.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My committee assignments did change. I was chair of Ag the last 2 years, and now they recreated the Water Committee, and I've been placed as chairman of that committee. Water is a very complicated issue in our state and unnecessarily complicated in some instances. So we're going to take a good, long, close look at that and see what changes need to be made, if any. I'm also on the Commerce Committee with Mike, and we look forward to hassling the Commerce Department daily. They need to be held accountable for the money that's going out the doors, and that's our job, is to take a closer look at that. I'm also on the Tax Committee, and I was involved in the internet sales tax changes in the laws back, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. Can't remember how long ago now. Major issues coming up, obviously, are the revenue and taxation. We honestly do not know how we're going to be truly affected until the stimulus money dries up, goes away. Then we'll have a better idea. One area that I've been closely involved with is the situation where you could not be evicted from your apartment or your house due to late payments. That was a good thing. Unfortunately, one of the side effects of that was the landlords were being held accountable for their loans, and foreclosure statements were going out. So I've been visiting with the Judiciary Committee Chair and looking at ways to extend the emergency, which they're going to look at immediately when we go back, extend the part for protections for the landowners on that past the date when the individual's renting. So it's a complicated issue, but it's one that we're taking a close look at. Other than that, redistricting will be beginning its trials through the legislature beginning this year and finalized next year. With that, I will wait to ask my questions.
Thank you, Representative Highland. How about Representative Carlson?
The three committees I was on in the previous session, I'm on 3 new committees this year. One of them is the new Water Committee, which Representative Highland is the chair. and I'm very excited about that. As he said, it's very important. It's complicated, and it's something that really needs looked at for everybody and the future of the state. And then I'm also on ag, which I'm excited about. This area is so agriculture that I've worked with several farmers down around Milford Lake with land lease and different things like that. And so I'm excited to learn more about that and be more a part of that in our area. And then also, I've been placed on Health and Human Services. In the past session, I was on Children and Seniors and Social Services Budget, which will give me a lot of, I think, help going into Health and Human Services. And I think that's a very important committee, going to be another very complicated and important one. And I think especially with all the things that have taken place with the COVID-19 and things that we're going to see a lot of things there. And I'm just hoping that we can get back to Topeka and everything stays where we can do our work and get it done, and take care of all the people that we have in our districts. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative. How about Senator Hawk?
Good morning. Hi there. Thank you. Always good to be here to meet with the city, and I have several questions for you. I'll try and go quickly on your first request. I'm, again, ranking member on Ways and Means, and that will put me on 4 or 5 budget subcommittees, which has been all the way from transportation to public health, or corrections to ag and environment things. I'm also the ranking member on transportation, new job for me this year. I've been on transportation. I'm on utilities, and I think our big issues in utilities will be, again, keeping our broadband effort up. We used $60 million of the CARES Fund, and we also put $5 million in general fund budget, and those programs are off, sort of funded through transportation, but will be implemented through commerce. I think we also need an energy plan, and currently our energy office is in KCC. Governor has suggested we make that a separate. The legislature, at least leadership, wasn't too interested in that, but we have 2 studies out there. We know our rates are higher than surrounding states, so we have kind of a bipartisan concern about that. So I'm sure the city would be interested in that too, but just like Ron said about water, that gets really complicated. I served on the Future of Higher Ed Task Force this summer. I was on the Spark Committee. I think we will be still functioning as a Spark Committee. We had $1.2 billion, as you know. Ron mentioned that you wanted $9 million and you got about 3 from the 2.9 from the county. I think that with new President Biden, there will be additional money that will come out. Congress just last week, and the president signed this last stimulus bill, and we have additional money. One of the critical pieces is unemployment dollars, and that will be extended, but I think we're still going to have unemployment issues in the state. Riley County was one of the lower counties for unemployment, but we still have had our issues there. Spark tried to address several things in that area, the eviction piece and getting rental money to landlords and tenants so they wouldn't be evicted. And we have the deadline extended, but I think we've spent most of the money in terms of the $1.2 billion. We got a lot of money that came through the Department of Commerce. We had over $13 billion. A lot of that was distributed directly to various agencies and entities in the state. So that's helped us out. I think the big issue in the legislature is going to be the budget, because we don't know what revenues are. I think there will be another stimulus with the new Congress that hopefully will backfill both state revenue and local revenue, so stay tuned for that. I'm also on the joint budget committee that works with House and Appropriations and the 3 members, chair, vice chair, and ranking on the Senate. So we'll be doing a lot of things, I think, looking with a fine-tooth comb at our budget. I'm on the joint building committee. We still have docking as an issue, along with several other things. I'm on Veteran Affairs Advisory Committee, the Forestry Advisory Committee, and I was on Brownback's Blue Ribbon Task Force, so I have a lot of interest in our water issues. As Ron, I come from Western Kansas, where we think that's where the water issue is, but we have other water issues, not just flooding in Manhattan, but our reservoirs and the funding of our reservoirs and the water supplies that we have coming to the city. The questions I have for you, and I'll try and run through those, and we might talk to those. I wonder where our airport is. Representative Carlson and I worked very hard at getting Governor Sebelius to give us that line of credit so we could get American Airlines and expand our airport. I wonder where we're going to be on our boarding, and it looks like our parking is done, but I'm still concerned about keeping the flights coming in here, as well as the needs that you expressed for improving the runway. I wonder if the city supports the wording on the hypothetical lease that the county is supporting on dark stores. I wonder how the city feels about the new Tyson bill, the transparency, and I noticed in your background material, I don't think you're too interested in spending the money and getting into a time crunch on your budget, but wanted to make sure that if you've seen that bill or when your staff does, I'd be interested in your response to her new bill. Commissioner Wells and I worked with the governor's staff and the governor put $50 million in for the LAVTR and the CCRS. That was taken out of the budget. I think that was still a good start. I certainly support that. Our right-of-way issues, I think, are a tricky issue. I think city has a really important point about protecting the right-of-way when the taxpayers invest in it. But we also need to make sure that we don't slow down the broadband and the small cell access, because our state's staying competitive. We need a lot of investment and improvement in our broadband for every citizen. On the IKE program, I have had constituents contact me about concerns out by Tuttle Creek on Highway 24, those 2 intersections with Seth Childs and going up over the dam. I think that's Highway 113. Want to see where the city is about roundabouts there, if that is the best solution. And then relative to Capers, I'm on Capers and spent 33 years contributing to Capers. But depending on where we are in our budget, I don't want to be closed-minded about taking care of our infrastructure needs and our schools and the other things we need to do in state government if we do hit a recession and the vaccines don't roll out and have the effect I hope that they will have in the next 3 to 6 months. So we may need to be open-minded to refinancing Capers. And I hear you all saying that you just want to have some input on that. But I think a lot of people have been running a little too negative on that as a possibility. Certainly not my first possibility, but I don't want to be closed-minded into being creative. I don't want to make the same mistake we made in the last recession with Governor Brownback of giving away tax dollars, as Representative Dotson said, and getting ourselves into a crunch and not investing in our infrastructure and our transportation plan, which put Kansas as one of the last states in recovering from the last recession in 2008. So those are my big issues, and would appreciate any input on those either now, today, or later on. Thank you very much, and pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Senator Hawk. We do appreciate all of you being with us this morning. I think Ron had hit on some of the major points for us, as did some of you as you were speaking about your committee appointments. I will let Ron go ahead and answer some of the questions that Tom Hawk has, and also have some of you that said you have other questions. I will say on behalf, and I'll have the city commissioners also speak to some of their concerns. The internet sales tax has really helped us during this pandemic. I think that happened during Governor Kelly's term, and my understanding is there isn't a cap that some other states have set as such as $10,000 or $100,000. I think there was zero cap. So I would like to know more about that, and as our conversation progresses, and also about the next stimulus package COVID funds. Is that still going to be run through the current Spark committee that's set up, or is that going to be done differently? Is that going to be with legislators, and how that's going to be looking? And will the state finance committee still be intact because we still have the vaccine rollout and the pandemic as it's still moving forward, and the Medicaid expansion stuff? But I'll let Ron go ahead and answer the questions that Senator Hawk has, and we can go from there.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Senator Hawk. One of the things that certainly has been in, and not only when will people start re-engaging and holding meetings and conferences, but when will they start flying again? 2019 was a record year for us at the airport. As many as, I think we had, at its peak, I think we had 9 flights a day, certainly 7 pretty steady. We're down to 2 flights a day, both to Dallas-Fort Worth. We've lost our flights to Chicago. I know Jesse Ramos on, and he can hop in here too, but that's kind of a crystal ball approach as to when people are going to feel comfortable about flying. We have received some federal aid as a result of some of that, and that's helping us. We don't know how long that's going to last. Obviously, we have a new terminal we're paying debt service on, and we were using passenger facility charges, which were rolling right in on 7 flights a day. They're not rolling in as well on 2 flights a day. So those are concerns to us going forward, and certainly future aid packages, I think, will need to deal with that. Senator, we'll want to investigate the hypothetical lease language you mentioned, as well as the other bill, and we'll certainly be in contact with all of you relative to that. On the roundabouts on the K-13, those came about as a result of the Seth Child Corridor study, which we participated in. We're supportive of those traffic improvements. Those are currently county projects, and I believe those have been partially designed and funded for partial design. That would be the next step for KDOT to approve those to go to full design. But we're certainly supportive of those area-wide improvements as being needed in the region and in the community to help with transportation. And I'll let Jesse jump in there if he has some comments, and/or Rob.
Good morning, everyone. Jesse Ramos, Director of Manhattan Regional Airport. Ron, you nailed it with your comments. We significant reductions in capacity with flights available and with people flying out due to COVID. One of the things that we can take comfort in is that we're following the national trend. And so we're not extraordinarily hurt. It's the same amount of pain that everybody else is feeling. Ron was right. In 2019, we had our 3rd consecutive record year. We had 80,000 people flying out of Manhattan Regional Airport. In 2020, I should have the numbers by the end of this week, and I'll have that ready and prepared. But we're estimating to be in the low 30,000s, maybe 32, 34,000 people who flew out. So, that's a pretty big drop off. And like Ron mentioned, with the PFC revenues, passenger facility charge revenues, there's other revenue sources that we also see decline in. Less people traveling means less people buying coffee, less people renting cars, less aircraft mean less fuel sales for the FBO, Kansas Jet Center. So there's definite trickle effect, but we were reimbursed quite a bit by the CARES Act grant. So we thank our delegation in DC for supporting that. And we're still going to have remainder from that CARES Act grant to help us through in 2021. As Ron mentioned, we do have our 2 flights a day going to Dallas. Chicago, I'm not sure. We're looking towards maybe spring. Now that we're seeing vaccines be distributed, consumer confidence may be back on the rise for people to start traveling again. There's also going to have to be a rebound period for business travel to kick back in. Our market relies heavily upon business travel. So it's, waiting to see what companies' travel budgets look like as we move forward towards later in 21. So we'll continue to keep everyone apprised and, hope for the best.
Senator Hawk here. There is $2 billion that is in this latest stimulus grant that the president signed last week. So I don't know what Kansas's share of that will be and how much will go to more rural airports, and if all of that will come to airports that are in our category. I hope most of it will come into airports that are in our category through federal funds. Do you know yet, Jesse?
We don't know yet, and you're right. With the $10 billion that came out of the CARES Act grant, we saw 2.1 million come to Manhattan. This one is, as you mentioned, only a couple $1 billion. We may see. Well, I don't want to guess at this point because we don't know yet. The FAA still needs to go through their process of interpreting the language and then massaging it for distribution. So we should be hearing pretty soon. The FAA is working on it now. So hopefully by the end of this month, we have some positive news on some additional federal relief.
Thanks, Jesse.
Mike Dodd, could I just follow up with Jesse just a minute since we're on that topic? As I recall, Chicago or O'Hare is the one who stopped the flights going up there. So who are we waiting on to make that decision? And second, I think, Ron, when you were briefing on the 3.5 million to keep the 150-foot width, you talked about support from Kansas. This money's, are you looking for that to come from Kansas or just support with the delegation in Washington to help with the FAA?
Both, Representative Dodson. I think it's going to be important. It's a state issue for us in keeping our capacity for how we can help and serve Fort Riley is a critical component. So, we certainly have enlisted federal assistance in this effort. Again, we're in the design phase, and we're a couple years off from actual construction, which is a time for us to fight for those funds. But if we don't put it back to 150, we're certainly, you could argue that we're diminishing our capability in the support of Fort Riley. So not only on the width, but if we add a little extra depth, we can actually enhance our service to Fort Riley, and now would be the time to do it. And so any and all help would be appreciated, whether it's political help or some assistance with funding. And again, we've got a couple of years to shore that up, but obviously the sooner the better.
And if I could just respond to the first question, it was about Chicago. That is a decision made by the airlines. American started to reduce a lot of their flights, not just for Manhattan, but across the board for regional airports our size, into feeding through O'Hare. So those were kind of system-wide reductions that they were making. They continue to feed Dallas and grow out of that hub. So again, I wish I had a better response for you, but it is an airline decision, and so far indications are American is looking to return flights to Chicago in the spring. That's what their long-term schedule and ticket sales are showing. That's another wait and see as demand has to also justify keeping those flights on that schedule. So like I said, so far so good on the outlook on probably getting them spring and summer.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you.
other questions?
Yeah, I know that Representative Carlin, did you say you had a few questions as well?
Well,
Wanna
I
read
wanted to
them?
ask on the airport
Okay,
piece.
sure.
If you could, and I'm sorry, I had to take a break. What is the on this construction project? Not so much dollars, but percent of construction?
So about 90% is the federal participation amount. The issue becomes what they're willing to participate in. And the issue we're dealing with Runway with is that they don't deem our support something that, or charters, sports charters, and our ability to handle them as their issue. They look at strictly commercial traffic. And from that, obviously, we're flying the regional jets, and they don't need 150-foot wide. So they're willing to pay, they're just not willing to pay to put back the 150.
So
I've
if
got
we
a
could
couple of arguments there that they have done it in other airports, which is a position we've certainly let Senator Moran know about, and will continue to let our federal delegation know about.
So if we could be supportive, it would be to try to convince them. I mean, if they were convinced to widen, then they would pay 90%.
Correct.
And
$3.5 million if they don't participate in that is our estimate at this particular time. And I guess, you know, we're just asking to put it back the way it is today. We're not asking for any enhancements.
Okay, thank you so much.
You bet.
Sydney, did you have other questions for Ron as well?
Well, I had some other thoughts as you were talking. First of all, I think a protest petition on the tax lid. I had not heard that. Is that a league position?
It is a league position.
Okay, I
and
probably missed
certainly-
it when I reviewed their. In 1992, protest petition law as a citizen before I was elected to office. And I have more faith in those petitions now because the law provides for citizens to get input from the county attorney before they circulate the petition, so it can't be thrown out on a technical error as ours was. That was on the law enforcement center. So I think I feel better about those petitions. They are protected for the public better. I like the idea. I'll talk to you more about it. And your housing, you and I had a brief conversation about housing recently, but kind of how are you approaching this? I know you're talking about a board. Is that going to be how you decide where, and how are you approaching the housing project?
So we're just getting started on that, a number of different fronts, but the original focus was to create a housing advisory board to look at various housing challenges we have in the community and how we as a city government can help tasks or incentives or whatever the case may be to help with affordable housing components, first time being able to renovate older stock potentially into owner-occupied, a number of different fronts. But you'll certainly, as the commission moves forward to establish that housing advisory board and gives them their charge and responsibilities, you'll hear a lot more about what some of those ventures are. And I know commissioners have concerns and comments relative to that. And then we added the Workforce Housing Initiative as a result of the sales tax election. So that'll be an added component of discussion relative to that, keeping in mind that the new sales tax doesn't take in effect until 2023.
So are you looking at changing anything in is it an ordinance that allows unrelated people to live in a home? Is that going to be part of the discussion?
I suspect that subject will come up as to whether or not we want to change that. Could be different zones. You know, again, is the property suitable for more occupancy? All of those issues will be part of that discussion.
Well, in my neighborhood, just put this plug in my neighborhood, I drive through streets that are overcrowded with trucks and cars on the street because of so many people being allowed to stay in a house. and the properties are going downhill as a result of overloading those houses as well. And I know the rule is, what, either 4 or 8, but, is it 4? But I know there's a lot more vehicles around houses than 4. So I think that in view of the fact that we have so many apartment buildings that can handle our student rentals nicely and they're convenient to the university, I would hope that we would look at zoning and maybe downzoning some of those areas. And I know we need to spend some money on refurbishing housing too. I mean, I realize I'm concerned about weatherization and those kinds of projects. Are we still doing that through CDBG?
We are. It's fairly limited. We don't have a lot of funding in place for that, but it is still a priority to be able to do it. It's limited to owner-occupied housing.
I was pleased in my home to do 2 projects, little projects. I put in, what am I trying to say? Insulation in 2 closets. In 2 closets in my house that made a huge difference in my comfort in my house. So I just encourage people to continue to work with the city on that. And that's, oh, do you have population bases of our new recreation centers? Do you have, when you planned those locations, were you looking at area populations around that, or is that a factor at all?
I think we were looking at schools. But
So it was really a partnership with the middle schools. And
So you
certainly
use-
those do serve specific areas, but they're meant to be community-wide centers, and certainly that Eddie could provide more information on that. He had to leave. Oh, he's on Zoom. So he could expand on that a little bit more. We could provide you some more information, but.
Well, I think that answers my question very well, actually, because those middle schools are, at the time, at least that they were built, were based on population.
And that was the other key for the Douglas Center to be part of that, because it kind of rounded out the locations for those and spreading them throughout the community.
Thank you. So one of the-
I don't want to take any more time right now. Go ahead and pass it on to somebody
Yeah.
else.
Thank you. I think I'll have Representative, was it Highland, that had a couple of questions, and also leave some time for commissioner comments and questions as well. Representative Highland, you had mentioned you had a few questions. We would certainly like to address them.
Yes, thank you. I read here your internet sales tax. That will be coming up this session, I'm sure. The question I have, you have mentioned that you liked the South Dakota plan. Part of that plan was any group that is selling things within our state that does not exceed $100,000 is exempt from this. In addition, that plan included that the state and the municipalities would provide the software to those individuals so they could collect that tax easily. So have you thought that through, and how you would expect us to deal with that situation when the bill comes up for consideration? That's the question. The other thing that I did not mention, which is going to be a very serious issue, is the amount of fraud. I have been hearing from both companies and individuals, their names and their company being used in fraudulent situation because of the unemployment. We will have to look at that very closely to determine how big this problem is. It's obviously huge. There's millions and millions of dollars involved. But we have to determine the scope of it and then see if we can't fix that. We don't know where in the system it was broached and the information taken. We don't know whether it was local or whether it was federal information, but it's huge. So with that, I'll wait for your reply. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Representative Highland. You know, the language we're using for the internet sales tax is a league position, league of. You know, we're certainly sensitive to whatever keeps most of that in place, I guess. So I think the one thing, as the mayor mentioned, that we liked about how Kansas implemented it is that it didn't put the provisions on there. I think it's, I think there is no threshold for business capability, business threshold. I know there's a couple of states that have a lower threshold, I think of 10,000. So, you know, we would probably yield to the legislature and the administration to determine what they think will hold up to a challenge. I know there was some suggestions that there would be challenges to the current system, and so we just think, obviously, if one thing the pandemic has proven is that online sales are continuing to be popular, and there's probably the ability to collect those online sales becomes additional challenges. So we want to be a good partner with you on that particular one, because we both will benefit from those online sales tax receipts. And again, the whole goal there is to create a level playing field with our local businesses and those that are online. Those local businesses are paying property taxes that are helping with all of our operations. Those online businesses generally are not. But all their deliveries are going across our streets.
I think there's more discussion to be had on that. I'm glad you're on that committee to discuss that issue. I think it's going to be an ongoing one, but I do believe it's benefited Kansas tremendously, and there's always players that aren't playing by the rules. We talk about software as well. With that, let me go ahead and go to our city commissioners. Commissioner Hattasol, any questions or comments?
I don't have much to add to the discussion here, but Representative Highland, my wife, somebody filed a fraudulent unemployment claim for her. The Department of Labor now talking about it, but it's not going anywhere but that's out there and it's real and it's happening to a lot of people, and you can't get through the Department of Labor to actually tell them, hey, this is a fraudulent deal, because the phones are so wiped out that you can never actually talk to a person. Yeah, the main thing is, I think, is just as you get your budget numbers start coming in, just I know it's always tempting to kind of take the easy way out and steal a little bit of money from here and there, and maybe just don't put it on the backs of the local governments as much as possible, because then it's still the same taxpayers paying the money, but whether instead of paying it to the state, they're having to pony it up to the cities and counties instead, when that's pushed down to the cuts are pushed down to the local level. So that's my only really major concern, is just kind of keep that from being a big burden that we have to now handle, instead of kind of addressing it at the state level.
Thank you. Commissioner Estabrook.
Commissioner Estabrook here. I found out last week that somebody had used my information for unemployment, had claimed unemployment through the city. That's how rampant it is, and I think that is a problem that Kansas has been uniquely targeted in because of potential vulnerabilities in our system. So there's just people everywhere dealing with that right now, in addition to everything else. But what I wanted to kind of focus on for just a minute here is really appreciative of the things that you've tried to do or communicated or are planning to do, I guess, related to the current crisis and the pandemic. But our community also had a crisis before that around flooding, and we can't lose sight. And I know that there's mitigation that we're doing locally. There's things that we're doing to help with the levee, but in regard to the Wildcat Creek, and I think Representative Dodson is very familiar with the components in play with Fort Riley and Clay County and the Wildcat Creek watershed, but those continued problems, they exist outside the city limits. All we can do is mitigate as that water comes down and potentially causes more problems throughout at least the western half of the city. So please, as you look forward to, through the next session, as you talk about water, as you talk about other problems, don't forget about that issue. It's gonna be a continuing problem here well after the pandemic.
Thank you. Commissioner Morris?
Yes, good morning. I want to just, I'm glad to see three of you, Highland background, but three of you who have had local government experience. So when you consider some of the legislation, you give us a call and talk with us about what it means to our cities and counties. Because some legislatures in the past have not just, passed something and let it fall where it may. I do want to talk about internet sales tax, and I'm sure that all of you have heard the impact on our local businesses. When a major corporation gives free shipping, which is exactly a match to the local sales tax that our merchants are charging. We are disadvantaging our local merchants by allowing these broad-based waiver of of sales tax to our state. And I have been pleased to see the revenue that's come in because at a time when our state was practically crippled with humongous budgets, those sales taxes have made a difference. And they are not just Kansas people paying them, they're national people paying them. And I think, is that true? They're just Kansas?
No.
Who knows?
Well, I heard, I see Representative Highland shaking his head no, so.
Okay.
It covers anybody that sells within our state borders is subject to the tax.
So it is just Kansas paying
The out-of-state businesses are paying it too.
Yeah,
That's what I wanted to hear.
right,
Because
exactly.
yeah, it's bigger than Kansas. This is drawing on the other 49 states and whoever, and that's the revenue we need to capture. So to offset, anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Morris. Before we end, and I'm going to, give it back to our legislators, I do want to thank our legislators for joining us this morning. I think our commissioners have brought up some great staff. I do have I have several concerns, one of them being funds for local government. The stimulus packages that are coming out of the federal government, we don't have great lobbyists fighting for local governments. So there's a lot of allocations for a variety of organizations and entities, and I'm not disagreeing that they don't need the funds, but our local government, our city government, providing roads and clean water and taking care of just everyday business and not being able to get the funds to make sure we have the staffing to do it adequately is putting a huge burden on us. And as the money comes to the state, I hope you consider how those funds are also divided for local government. The other piece is the League of Kansas, the League of Municipalities for Kansas, that represents all of Kansas. Sometimes the Manhattan needs are very different than the rest of the Kansas in a holistic manner. So feel free to reach out to us anytime you wonder about how it meets our standards or what it means for our community and our residents. We are easily accessible. My other question was for Medicaid expansion. I don't know if you feel like that's going to happen this year, and where we are with lottery funds. Our stabilization center is up and going, and we really appreciate the legislators that work closely with us to make sure we have that. We have a lot of people utilizing it, and it's been a huge benefit for our community. But I always worry that when you look at budget, those are the first things that are going to be cut. And I want to know if there was any progress made on those lottery funds. funding machines, as well as Medicaid. So those are a couple of my questions and concerns. If you'd like to address them today, that's fine. If you would like to email me, that's fine as well. But I do want to say thank you for being with us this morning.
Senator Hawk, can I give you a quick response on the lottery funds?
Yeah, absolutely.
We made good progress, and then the pandemic came along in terms of new machines and getting them installed, and that was to help with the funding of the Crisis Stabilization Center. I'm not sure where we are with that. The governor has a new proposal in terms of the iLottery and sports betting, and I think that could potentially help. Again, just as we're looking at people are buying more things online, I think the governor's proposal, and there might be some support from the casinos for that. So all of your delegation here will need to watch that very closely as the session rolls out and see where the governor's proposal is and how that's going over with our colleagues. But I think keeping in mind that that's a critical part of us funding our Crisis Stabilization Center is important. So thanks for bringing that up, Mayor.
Thank you. Ron, is there anything else?
I don't know. I noticed that Representative Carlson had turned her mic off, so I didn't know if she had a question or a comment.
Representative Carlson?
Yes, I'm sorry, but I couldn't hear.
Oh, okay. We just thought maybe you had a question or a comment. We saw the mute button go off on your screen there.
No, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I would just add,
Senator Hawk.
I would echo and appreciate your willingness to serve in the legislature, especially during these challenging times. We hope you have a great session. We know it would have regular challenges even without COVID, so that just adds to the complexity of it all as the state continues to deal with it and heads towards recovery. We also, he wasn't able to be on the call, but our lobbyist, Dick Carter, is certainly available to you as you have issues or questions that come up. Would encourage you to touch base with him and his group throughout the session, and he can certainly do some work on our behalf with you. So we appreciate your participation.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, I will adjourn our... Yes, yes,
I'd
Linda.
just like to make a footnote here. One of the issues that several organizations around the state are really trying to push is somehow to deal with trafficking in this state. And women typically, I want to do something about it. I think for me, it's a moral issue. And I personally need to work to support it, and I'd like for the legislators, and it's not a city issue necessarily, although we have, a year or two ago, we passed a massage ordinance,
Therapist.
What is it?
A massage therapist ordinance, licensing.
Massage therapist ordinance.
Licensing.
And now massage therapists have to have a certain standard of education, and the facilities have to be licensed. And that was, that was kind of new in the state. There aren't many cities that have done it. But it's something that should be done at a statewide level, because all anybody has to do is go outside our border, the city of Manhattan, and set up a shop. So we need to be looking after those who don't necessarily have a voice. Thank you. I'll end it.
Thank you, and I agree with those sentiments as well. With that being said, thank you very much for being with us this morning. We understand the dynamics are going to be different communication-wise in Topeka as you gather together as much or less as possible to make things happen. Discussions, we usually have two or three of them, but we will constantly keep in touch with you, and we appreciate the relationship we have with each and every one of you. Thank you once again for joining us this morning. And with that, we are adjourned.